Well, let me start by saying that I don't care if 13-year-old Adam Toledo was expropriating funds from a bank at 2 a.m. and his parents were the getaway car drivers. At the point that the police encountered that kid in that alley in Chicago, that kid did, in fact, obey the commands of the cop and show him his hands, which were empty. And I don't care that he may have had a gun before then. I don't care that he may have thrown the gun behind the fence. We're not even clear that that's the case. And I honestly don't care what he was doing or why he was out that late or where his parents were. And I don't give a fat rat's behind about anything else other than the fact that this 13-year-old kid did what the cop told him to do and showed him his hands, which were empty. And in a second, he was shot in the chest anyway. That's all that matters to me. I don't care about all these people whining about where his parents were. These same smug social commentarians didn't ask where Kyle Rittenhouse's parents were when he murdered two people in Kenosha. They didn't say that he deserved to be shot in the chest because he had a weapon in his hands walking down the street late at night in the midst of all those cops. Nobody questioned the decency of his parents, even when they found out that his mama didn't know where he was late at night and claimed she was driving around looking for him. Her son was in a whole nother town killing people with an assault rifle under the guise that he went there to clean graffiti off of a school with an assault rifle in a town that he didn't live in. That was provided to him, the assault rifle, by a 19-year-old named Dominic Black. None of those angry, mostly white, mostly conservative social commentarians asked what the heck was wrong with him and where were those parents, his parents either. But I guess they wouldn't because, he's legally an adult, quote unquote. Still, those folks gave Rittenhouse the cover of their excuses and even gave money to his legal defense and paid his bail. But they question where the parents are of a 13-year-old kid who actually did what he was told, showed his hands to the cops in Chicago, and he was shot dead anyway. What was he doing out at 2 a.m.? I don't know. What were any of us who ever snuck out when our parents were asleep or at work doing when we did it? A bunch of old people sitting around acting holier than thou as if we've never done kid stuff when we were kids. Oh, and the Chicago PD is sticking to their story that Toledo had a gun in his hand because last month, a prosecutor who claimed in court that 13-year-old Adam Toledo had a gun on him when he was shot by police actually didn't fully inform himself before testifying. That's what the Chicago prosecutor's office says. Imagine that. An officer of the court didn't bother to find out all the actual facts in the case before he went into court and implicated a 13-year-old kid for posing a threat to the cops who shot him to death when he actually didn't. Imagine that. But yeah, let's talk about where the parents were, because that's the problem here, the parents. And I had wanted to do a nice, light-hearted monologue today to talk about our little garden project that I've roped my husband into. We're building real raised garden beds this year and are planning to produce enough produce to share some with the neighbors and feed ourselves. But today, it was hard to focus on that because honestly, I've just been so angry this week. I'm just going to tell you that rage has been the prevailing emotion for me these past few days, but I have to even myself out this weekend. I really do. And to do that, we're going to build another raised garden bed in the front yard. That's right. You heard me. Our neighborhood raised garden beds are in our front yard, and it's causing quite a little stir. Our elderly neighbor, Mr. Leftwich, you've heard me talk about him before, the man who knew my family and watched me grow up practically, is pretty proud of our little project. He's been silently watching us, and when we got the first raised bed filled, seeded, and covered, he asked what we were going to grow. I told him lots of stuff: tomatoes, peppers, onions, cabbage, lettuce, lots. Mr. Leftwich said that he and his wife have been watching us build the first bed, and his wife said, "Well, why are they putting it in the front yard? That's not where you put those." Mr. Leftwich said, "Well, I ain't say nothing because, I didn't want to start a fuss with the missus, but I knew what you were doing, and I like it." He even gave us some sprouted onions and sweet potatoes to plant, and I know he's expecting a good return on his investment. So there's a little bit of pressure here to grow some good stuff. Then there are the other neighbors who we see looking, wondering what in the world are those crazy Lukmans with their big old red, black, and green and Black Lives Matter flags doing this time. They're peeking through their kitchen curtains when we're out there gawking at the seedlings coming up in the first raised bed, or when I'm out there in my bare feet harvesting the collards and the kale that we planted last year in the 6 red and black storage containers that we planted them in, or when we're out there taking pictures and doing videos of our little project, marveling at the little collard plant that was migrated to the mailbox by our good friends, the pollinators, the birds or the bees, whichever one did it. I'm pretty sure our neighbors think we're weirdo hippies, and that's cool, because I think we kind of are. One neighbor did ask why we were taking up the lawn with the raised garden bed. And as much as I wanted to say, well, you know what? The lawn is included in the mortgage, so we can do with it what we want. And anyway, lawns are a capitalist invention signifying middle class status. I was in a good mood that day, so what I said instead was, well, what's the lawn ever done but sit here? It's a waste of space that could be used to be productive and grow food. So that's what we decided to do with it. Now, I don't know if the neighbor got that or understood it and thought more about it, but we're hoping that our little idea catches on, that more neighbors reclaim their lawn space, the front yard lawn space, for something useful and productive to grow food or other plants that help other people and builds community along the way. And this, my friends, is one of the ways that I deal with the horror of the realities we face in this society. The stress of having to report on these assaults every day, every week. It's difficult. Carrying out our own little mini revolution in our front yard, barefoot in the sun, covered in dirt and mulch, raging against the machine, one tomato and cabbage sown and grown by our own hands at a time. And if you want to see our little revolutionary front yard raised garden bed project, you can follow us on patreon.com/LukmanNation for some neat videos.